Seems like every day the media just makes another stupid take that is so out of touch. But you know what? I think it's funny, and I'm going to keep talking about it. So, in this little video, we're going to look at inverse.com, a site I've actually never heard of, that is going to talk to us about the trans controversy in The Last of Us Part 2. The title of this article is The Rest of Us, The Last of Us Part 2, Trans Controversy Explained. Who are games for anyway? Let's jump into it. This is a little bit of a long one, I'm not going to lie. I might cut some parts out. I haven't decided yet. Let's read it, kind of judge it once we get to the end, shall we? Who are gamers for anyway? What kinds of people deserve to be depicted in them? There's a small but loud minority of people out there who want to tell you that video games belong to them and not you. Boom. Lady gamer? Person of color? Not straight? Non-conforming? Do you not conform? Do you? They will persistently, that's what we do. We persistently interpret your opinions about games and desire to enjoy them as forcing an agenda. Yes, that's exactly what people like me do. Oh shit, this is spoilers. Fuck. Okay, so there are some spoilers in here. I'm going to skip over that and get to the good stuff. The latest target of ire among this perennially aggrieved subset of gamers is The Last of Us Part 2. An April hack of the game's developer, Naughty Dog, revealed a number of major plot points, and we're going to skip some stuff. A post about the leaks from the right-leaning website, One Angry Gamer, oh my god, who takes that guy seriously, bemoans Naughty Dog's woke anti-Christian agenda, while savoring the dismay of fans of Ellie, a character described as the much-beloved lesbian icon for the SJWs who love to sing this game's praises on Twitter but had no intention of buying the game. The post concludes with the baseless statement that naturally everyone is losing their minds, uniting in mutual disgust. The Last of Us Part 2 leaks spread throughout social media that week in late April. A narrow but distinct thread of commentary about Abby's appearance emerged. Broad shoulders and muscular arms sparked speculation that the character is trans despite total lack of confirmation in the game's leaked footage. Citing an anonymous source with unstated ties to Naughty Dog, Australian outlet Sausage Roll reported that people who question the progressive narrative that Naughty Dog are injecting into their games are at high risk of losing their jobs. I'd believe that. After lamenting the diversity of the game's new additions to the cast, the article dropped an alleged bombshell from its anonymous source. That's not all. The characters in The Last of Us 2 are designed in such a way not to make trans people feel uncomfortable. Every single new character introduced in the sequel does not have definitive feminine or masculine qualities. Okay. Sorry, my throat hurts. I lived, for people who don't live in major cities, I lived in Los Angeles for almost a decade, okay? And now, when I got there, it was not that bad. Yes, people were, more progressive. I would argue they're not really progressives, but they think they are. And then somewhere around 2016, the culture out there shifted so drastically. Now, I know that stuff has been happening for a while, this kind of mentality, but it drastically shifted out there in like a day. It was like 2015, and then the next day was 2016, and everything changed. And this crap where people get fired for not being part of the progressive culture is true, because it happened to me, okay? Let me rephrase. I was not fired specifically, but I was targeted at my job constantly because I didn't play their progressive game. I was pulled aside for certain things that I did or didn't do, even though the customers that I worked with, the clients, always gave me 5-star reviews. I was a manager, I was getting promotions, but I was always pulled aside for not being part of their progressive culture. It happened to me at school. I don't really consider myself a Republican or a conservative, but I was the only person that had thoughts on both sides of the aisle. Now listen, I understand that trans people are real. I do. I think that they are a thing or whatever. I think just like how you can be a white man is a thing, how you can be a black woman is a thing. I think that you can be a trans person. However, this idea that society wants to put trans people down and hates people for being trans or gay or whatever is ridiculous. Now, just like in my Ahmaud Arbery video, people seem to not understand this point. I don't wish harm on anybody who is different looking than me. That's ridiculous. I would never want that in my life. But what I do know is that, yes, there are people out there who will hate you for being black or hate you for being white or hate you for being gay. It's just part of life, unfortunately, and part of having a free society. And when people have the right to think what they want to think, sometimes those things are not going to line up with what you think. Just like this article and my thinking. The fact that this person thinks that all these people out here are against the game because of a trans character is just ridiculous. No one cares. I've played Tomb Raider. I've played the first Last of Us. Just look at all these games. The Walking Dead series, Pathfinder, Swords of Ditto, Horizon Zero Dawn, Tomb Raider, Bloodstained, the Darksiders series has female characters. Like, I don't care. Astral Chain is a fun game that has female lead characters. I don't care what color or anything the character is. I just want to play a fun ass game. But what I don't want to do when I'm playing this fun ass game, and I'm excited for The Last of Us, don't get me wrong, I actually want to play it. But what bothers me is when people are trying to force their agenda down your throat. And that's exactly what these guys are doing. And you know how I know that? Because Cyberpunk is letting you change your genitals, okay? I think this is a fair comparison of controversy, okay? In Cyberpunk, you can alter your genitals to be whatever you want. Well, in that universe, in this type of game where it's a role-playing game, you can customize your character to be whatever you want. And in the future of Cyberpunk, where man and machine is melded into one, you can mix whatever you want. So it makes sense. And you're letting the player choose for themselves. In this game, they're saying you have to be a trans person. You have to include these people. You have to do this. You have to do that. Now, I personally don't really give a shit either way. I just don't want it like shoved down my throat. And if the game is overtly like SJW when I play it, I'll probably get annoyed and turn it off. But I'm going to try it because I really liked the first one for the gameplay, and the story was really good, but I'm going to probably have to throw that out the window. But the idea that I hate trans people is just stupid. If I was playing the game, if I was playing The Last of Us 2 and it was saying, and Joel was looking at Ellie the whole time and he said, Donald Trump is the best president there ever was. Fuck Obama. I would be just as annoyed with that too. You have to understand that. It would be just as stupid and annoying. Like in Far Cry 5, when there had that one character that was like, libtards, that was annoying. I don't want to play games for their politics. I want to play games because they're fun and they have cool puzzles and the story is cool and it's stuff I can relate to. Because every time a game has politics in it, I have to think about idiots who write this article. Okay, let's continue. For Sausage Roll, this imagined trans makeover of the Naughty Dog series is the latest, most egregious example of an ongoing move by writer and director Neil Druckmann to push a clear political agenda through extremely divisive and partisan plot devices. The Aussie blog argues that the creative leave, Aiming Henig's departure from the studio in 2014, was a watershed moment that paved the way for Ellie kissing a girl in the Left Behind DLC expansion for The Last of Us, as well as the implied romantic relationship between Nadine and Chloe in the Uncharted 4 spinoff, The Lost Legacy. See, that's just annoying. Like, why do we have to have all this stuff? I don't care. Like, at the end of Uncharted 4, when Drake and that chick moved to the beach, I didn't give a shit about that either. I skipped through all that crap. Like, so I guess in a way you could argue it doesn't matter, but why force an agenda and why force lame, sloppy plot points? It's just not interesting. You might recognize this argument as an iteration of the slippery slope logical fallacy. How is that a logical fallacy? Which assumes a small first step will trigger a train of events resulting in a catastrophic overall outcome. And I bet you would use your slippery slope logical fallacy to say that when Trump went into office, that white supremacy was dog whistled all over the country. Yeah, down with the white man. It's been trotted out to defend all manner of hateful bullshit for decades, even centuries, like segregation and marriage bans. You give an inch, that the argument goes, and they take a mile. First, Ellie kisses a girl, and now every character in the game is genderless. I mean, you literally just proved your own, you literally just disproved your argument. The line of reasoning is known as a logical fallacy because essentially it's never accurate, except for you're wrong in this case. It might not be like a true logical argument in the sense of logic mathematically, but it's not. The reason it's like a stereotypical thing to say is because that's kind of what happens. First, and from the conservative standpoint, and I disagree and agree with this to an extent. First, the left wanted gay marriage, and now they're forcing people to bake cakes for gay weddings. And now we have to put trans signs on every bathroom. And now they want to have trans people in the army and pay for their reassignment surgery. It's like, that's what they're talking about. I'm not saying that's every single trans person. Of course it's not. Of course there's a lot of trans people that want to keep their life private, which is how it should be, in my opinion. What's more, this alarmist hand-wringing about the character design is The Last of Us 2 neglects to account for some pretty obvious elements of the story and setting. Maybe the characters aren't that bothered about looking pretty or macho, given the constant threat of death doing blah, 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 perhaps. That's actually a fair argument, because I was talking to a friend of mine about this on another channel he and I do called Under Fire Media, and we also have a podcast called Friendship Simulator that you can check out on SoundCloud. And we were talking about this, and I was saying how maybe in this post-apocalyptic world, they don't really have standard relationship roles because, you know, who cares? Everyone's dying. So if you want to be with a girl, you can be with a girl. So I can understand it. I can understand it from like an apocalyptic standpoint. But when you're making every single person part of this agenda, it's obvious that it's an agenda. So you just have to understand, person who wrote this article, that it's not the idea of supporting trans people and LGBT people isn't a bad thing. But you're saying that only this side of life matters. Only your perspective matters, and fuck the other people. And sure, maybe trans people haven't been represented in games for the last 30 years, but there's not that many trans people in the world. And you can relate to characters in other ways than your genitals and your skin color. When I'm playing Tomb Raider, I'm not like, fuck yeah, she's a woman and I wish I was a woman. Or I don't get it, she's a woman, I can't play the game. It's not that complicated. It's a triumphant story of her trying to get this artifact, and it's fun. And it's an adventure, and you get lost in it. When I'm playing Death Stranding, I don't relate to it because I can't not relate to it because there's fictitious ghost monsters. You play the game because it's just a good game. I don't understand why people need to relate to shit on the screen in a physical, tangible context. You're supposed to relate to the story and the nuance and things behind it that have depth, not the surface layer of life. If I want to relate to the surface layer of life, I'll just go outside because that's the surface layer. Continuing on, not everyone who's angry about The Last of Us Part 2 has a problem with Abby or anyone else in the game, maybe possibly being trans. Millions of players, the first entry in the season sold 20 million copies, will probably wait to judge the experience for themselves or to see what reviews have to say. Even so, several weeks out from release, there there are already enough Abby shitposts out there to merit their own dedicated Know Your Meme page. The overriding message in them is clear. It's bad enough that Abby hurts characters we love, but the memes implicitly deem two things unforgivable. Abby is not conventionally attractive to straight men, unquestionably the most important audience for all games. Naughty Dog asked players to quite literally identify as a person who is gender nonconforming or trans by making Abby a playable character. Listen, dude, or chick, or whatever you are, I think these people don't realize that Twitter is just such a small percent of the world, and most people are just going to buy the game and play it and not give a fuck. So this article and this video are moot. One particular post illustrates the first of these side-by-side comparison, Final Fantasy versus American, whatever. It's an ironic comparison given that Tifa's Final Fantasy VII Remake design had previously prompted howls of censorship from these same corners of the internet after director Tetsuya Nomura said Square Enix opted to tone down her unnatural breasts from the 1997 version of the game. Just a few months later, Tifa is now being held up by the same group of doomsayers as the gold standard of what women in games ought to look like. Look how they cut off the bottom part of the tweet. I bet you it has like 1 like. No one fucking cares about this kind of shit. What are you bitching about? What's really ruffling the feathers here is the prospect of being forced to understand and sympathize with a gender non-conforming or trans person. If you can learn to care about Halo's four-jawed lizard aliens, sure, it's possibly to muster up a bit of empathy for another human being who doesn't look like Tifa Lockhart. Okay, listen, I actually think that's a fair point. But that's what I was saying a little bit ago. It doesn't matter what you play as. It's about the journey. And if you're just saying that trans people good, white man bad, the whole game, that's just annoying, man. And you're making this game for your fans. Now, you could argue that as a billion-dollar company, they should make it to the broadest amount of people possible. So wouldn't you not want to make it all about a straight white male or a trans person, that you would just want to make it like a regular average Joe? And it doesn't have to be a man. The main character could be a woman. It doesn't matter. And Ellie is like a teenage girl. I think that's like the most general character you could have that everybody could relate to. A person who grew up in an apocalyptic world, who lost her whole family, doesn't know where Joel is or anything. That's pretty desperate. That sounds awesome to me. A gender expression sandbox. Unlike other female characters in The Last of Us Part 2 and in most video games, Abby is more masculine than usual. Her shoulders are broad with defined biceps. The reveal of gender non-conforming playable characters led many to believe Abby was in fact a trans woman, but there's nothing in fact to confirm that. Her voice actress, Laura Bailey, is a cisgender woman. Oh my God. And I'm sure they're going to complain about that, how they didn't get a transgender to play a transgender. However, the game still appears to include trans representation in the character Lev, played by the trans actor Ian Alexander. See, this is what I'm fucking talking about. Why does that fucking matter? Who cares? Just let them be people and work in life like normal. No one wants to... I don't want to stop them. And if anybody does, that's fucked up. But I don't see that happening. For many trans gamers, video games, especially those with character creation, provide a safe space to try on new looks without commitment. Early character creator tools were extremely binary, with not only just two gender options, but overly exaggerated versions of the two. Oh my God. This is so sad. This is so sad. Though Naughty Dog has yet to reveal whether Abby is actually a transgender character, The Last of Us Part 2 leaks highlight where game developers and fans have made strides with trans inclusion in recent years. It also exposes where both continue to fall short. What the fuck are you talking about? Video games has long resembled comic books and fantasy novels, in that their heroes tend to be cisgender, heterosexual, white, and male. You're right. Totally. There isn't 4,000 female goddamn superheroes and black superheroes. They didn't make the Black Panther. As it stands, games appeal to more people than they adequately represent. So what does trans representation look like in gaming now? And what form would future improvements take? A handful of characters stand out as examples of trans representation in mainstream video games. Among them is Krem from BioWare's 2014 fantasy role-playing game. The developer consulted with a trans focus group in creating the character and earned a GLAAD award for their efforts. Sam Maggs of Mary Sue hailed the mercenary supporting character as the awesomest representation of a trans character in a mainstream game. So what to make of Abby? Whether or not the character turns out to be trans, games like The Last of Us and Tell Me Why have the potential to start controversies and create and cultivate empathy. Numerous academic studies have linked interactive narratives with improved empathy. In 2018, the University of Wisconsin-Madison found middle schoolers who played a video game showed greater connectivity and brain networks related to empathy. If we can't empathize with another's difficulty or problem, motivation for helping will not arise. Richard Davison, director and professor of psychology and psychiatry at University of Wisconsin-Madison, said of the study, our long-term aspiration for this works is that video games may be harnessed for good. The old adage, walk a mile in their shoes, means something different when you can literally make a character walk with the flick of a joystick, whether that's assuming the role of a created character or making one of your own. That's up to you. What's more important is having the option to choose for yourself. So who are games for? The answer is us. Every last one of us. So, what can we conclude here? Well, we can conclude that media can be utilized for manipulation of political agenda, which is what this person clearly wants. This person clearly wants people to be force-fed a political agenda that they may not agree with and play as a character they may not want to, and just so that they can be harnessed empathy. So if I play as Abby, the trans character, in a game about zombies, am I gonna feel for trans people now? No, because I already do feel for trans people. I feel for a lot of people because life is about struggle and it's hard, whether you're a white person or a trans person. Life is not easy. And we are all discriminated and oppressed in some way. And that scale slides depending on who you are and where you are. But that doesn't mean that every instance of life is discrimination, racism, or that the political agenda that you subscribe to needs to be forced down other people's throats so that you can feel better about yourself. Not everybody in life looks at the world the way you do. Random author here. A lot of people in life just want to go on with their day and they accept people for who they are no matter what. A lot of people don't go to the store and see a gay person and go, gross. They just buy their milk and they leave and they don't care. That's how a lot of the world is. So I guarantee you, when people buy this game and play this game, they're not going to think, oh, wow, Abby's trans. So amazing. Maybe some people will, but I guarantee you it's going to be less than 1%. Most people are just going to want to play the game and have fun. The only people who are aware of any of this shit are the 1% of us that use Twitter and follow this kind of news. And I think the fact that you're writing this article and talking down to a fan base that is more upset about the forced narrative than the fact that there's a trans person in the game and you're totally misrepresenting that shows how narrow-minded you actually are. And you're not as woke as you may think. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.